For me, the final one is her speech was all about how Britain is open to the world, champion of globalisation. She didn't say, however, today that what she thought Brexit stood for, and she thinks it stood for control of immigration. And control of immigration and economic liberalism are at loggerheads with each other. And whenever I talk to the business leaders and the government heads here, they say they are just confused about whether she is effectively anti-globalisation or pro-globalisation.
Robert, thank you. At least 30 people are missing, many of them feared dead after a luxury mountain hotel in Italy was hit by an avalanche. Emergency workers are frantically digging through walls of snow in Abruzzo in the hope of finding survivors. The avalanche was triggered by 4 big earthquakes, which shook central Italy yesterday, approximately 60 miles from the 4-star Rigopiano Hotel. Rebecca Barry reports.
Through the night, rescuers battled through heavy snow to reach the hotel. It took them 6 hours. The only way to get through was on skis because the avalanche had blocked all the roads. They find a warehouse buried beneath a mountain of snow. "Can you hear me?" they shout, but their calls are met with silence. Then finally, they reach what was the 4-star hotel. Inside, you can see the damage caused as a wall of snow collided with the building. So powerful, it forced its way through walls. The comfortable rooms being enjoyed by holidaymakers, now entombed. At least 20 tourists, including children, and 7 members of staff were inside at the time. It's not hard to imagine why rescuers fear many are dead. It's reported some guests trapped in the hotel sent text messages. Here, someone urges their loved one to stay calm, but they say with the earthquakes, they can't. And the final text, asking how they are, receives no response. Rescuers tunnelled their way through the snow in search of the missing. Nearby, at least one person was found alive, no doubt in shock, but now safe, as rescuers helped him through the barricade of snow and ice. The mountainous Abruzzo region in central Italy was hit by a series of 4 earthquakes yesterday, triggering the deadly avalanche which engulfed the hotel, reportedly shifting the whole building by 30 feet. This Italian official says the courageous rescuers faced unbearable conditions and they're working to get the emergency vehicles closer to the scene. But the longer it takes for them to get there, the lower the chances of finding anyone else alive. Rebecca Barry, ITV News.
There are now just 27 hours to go until Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. But major questions still remain over the team that will surround him. Just 28 out of almost 700 senior positions in his administration are yet to be filled. And as our Washington correspondent Robert Moore explains, among many concerns for those who oppose his presidency.
With Washington now ready for tomorrow's inauguration, the question has quickly become whether a Trump administration has a credible plan to try and unite such a deeply divided country. Donald Trump, who flew into the city last night, but was barely visible beyond his ever-expanding cavalcade, has the lowest approval rating ever recorded for an incoming president. Vice President Mike Pence said he was convinced the wounds of the election campaign could be healed.
I think the American people are going to see a president inaugurated this Friday who is going to keep the promise he made on election night, to be president of all of the people of this country.
Think about Muslims! Last night, activists dressed in the infamous garb of the KKK accused the Trump team of having links to the far right and to the white supremacist movement. And elsewhere in the city, Others are highlighting the threat they see to America's LGBT community. But the major protests are planned for Saturday, when tens of thousands will take to the streets. One big question going forward is, how does opposition to the Trump presidency take shape? With the Democratic Party leaderless and adrift, are we now entering an era of direct action and street protests?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about...
Back in the corridors of power, another issue is quickly emerging. Beyond the top cabinet picks, thousands of key jobs throughout the administration have yet to be filled, raising significant questions about whether the White House will be ready on day one to handle a national security or international crisis. The stage is now set for the handover of power. But tomorrow comes with a degree of uncertainty rarely seen in the United States. For almost no one believes that the Trump presidency will be conventional or predictable. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
And our correspondent Paul Davis is live in Washington. So, Paul, as Robert just said, the inauguration is tomorrow. Mr. Trump is heading to Washington today. What are you expecting to happen today?
Well, first of all, he's already tweeted a message saying that he's getting ready to leave for D.C. The journey begins, he says. He'll arrive back here in the Capitol this afternoon when he and the Vice President-elect will first lay a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier in the Arlington War Cemetery. He'll then go on to a Make America Great Again concert at Lincoln Memorial before spending tonight at Blair House, the official presidential guest house, while Michelle and Barack Obama spent their last night at the White House. The authorities here say anything up to 900,000 people could be in Washington for the inauguration. Some parts of the city are closed down already. There will be protests, as we've seen in Robert's report. Some have started already. There'll also be pro-Trump groups like the Bikers for Trump, who say they'll be arriving in their many hundreds today to put a wall of meat between Donald Trump and those who oppose him. And of course, thousands of National Guards men and women have been drafted in to make sure that doesn't get out of hand. The cost of laying on all this, well, you're not expected to have much change out of £200 million.
Gulp. Paul, thank you. Well, this evening there's a special programme on ITV. President Trump, America's greatest gamble, and that begins at 7:30. And you can watch all of tomorrow's events in full. Join Tom Bradbury live from Washington for President Trump, the inauguration. That from 4 p.m. Here, people in Surrey are expected to be asked to vote on a 15% tax rise as the council tries to balance its budget. The county is to become the first to hold a referendum asking people whether they would be prepared to pay more. Well, we can speak live now to our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan, who joins me live in Westminster. First of all, why such a big rise, 15%, Carl?
Well, Surrey say they've got no choice. They say that central government has cut the amount of money it gives them by £170 million a year. They have managed to find £450 million worth of savings, but demand for services is still rising, and therefore they need more money. Their only option is to go for this council tax increase, and they say they need 15%. Now, it is the law that any council wanting to raise council tax by more than 5% has to put it to one of these local referendums. So that's what's going to happen. Labour say, in the shape of Jeremy Corbyn, that it is not the right approach.
It's not right that we should thrust the social care crisis on local authorities, all of whom have different levels of income all over the country. It's a central government responsibility, and the central government should face up to its responsibility.
But whatever their political persuasion, do you anticipate that other councils will follow Surrey's lead?
Well, this is the interesting question, isn't it? Surrey is overwhelmingly Conservative, so there's little chance really that they're likely to get voted out on the back of this, whichever way voters decide to go on the question of whether to accept the raise or not. But other councils have thought about it. Liverpool, Lancashire have both considered it, and unless something is done about the social care crisis, which everyone agrees there is, then I think we will see more councils having to go for this kind of nuclear option of asking their voters whether or not they will accept a tax rise.
Carl, thank you. Still to come, could a change be on the way for couples going through IVF treatment, as MPs debate whether it should be standardised. And racing to the line, the British yachtsman chasing first place in a race round the world with the end just in sight. But first, a mother and her partner have each been sentenced to 13 years in jail for feeding her 4-year-old girl drugs in the months before she died. Poppy Widdowson was given substances that included diazepam, heroin, methadone and ketamine for up to 6 months before her death in June 2013. Well, Damon Green joins me live now from Hull Crown Court. What sort of reaction, Damon, has there been to all of this?
The reaction from the family, one of profound sadness, a sadness we're told which is never going to go away. Poppy was described in court as a lively and vivacious girl, and today her father's family made available images of her during her brief life to show the kind of person that they have lost. She was just 4 years old when she lost her life in circumstances which have yet to be fully examined by a court. But today, her mother and her mother's partner were each sentenced to 13 years in jail for offences of child cruelty and of drugs. Afterwards, Poppy's uncle James reacted on the court steps.
We've waited for 3.5 years for this day, and it doesn't get any easier. But Poppy, the memories we've got her are everlasting, and that we won't ever be distanced from that.
Well, Poppy grew up in a small flat in Grimsby with her mother, Michaela Pike, and her mother's partner, John Ritting. It was a flat used for drug dealing, and all her life she was surrounded by drugs, by drug paraphernalia. She was given drugs to sedate her when, frankly, her mother simply could not be bothered to look after her anymore. The judge told Michaela Pike, "You are a malevolent and manipulative woman with an easy facility to deceive and lie. You are utterly unfit to be a mother." An inquest has yet to establish the full causes of Poppy's death.
Damon, thank you. MPs are today debating the level of IVF services offered on the NHS in England. Campaigners are calling for an even playing field, as they put it, as the number of treatments currently offered to couples is determined by the area in which they live. Francesca Carpenter explains.
Louise Purvis counts herself as one of the lucky ones. After years of struggling to get pregnant, she had her baby Felicity 6 months ago, after 2 rounds of IVF on the NHS.
If we'd only been given 1 round of IVF, we'd probably thought there was no hope for us. Our first round, it worked and it ended in miscarriage. And if that had been the end of our IVF journey, I can't even begin to say how it would have affected us.
But 8 miles down the road, Dawn Pearson was told by doctors she could only have 1 round.
We just accepted that that was it, just the 1 cycle. I've actually thought that everyone in the country just got 1 cycle, and unfortunately we ended in a miscarriage. I think it's very unfair that because of where I live, I only get 1 chance, 1 go.
Today MPs will debate the issue in Parliament, headed by Labour MP Steve McCabe, who wants to see a national standard of care.
And we just can't go on like this. It doesn't make any sense. It is a medical condition. Anywhere else you would expect the NHS to provide the same standards, but what's happening here is people are being affected, in some cases just a few miles difference.
While IVF funding depends on where you live in England, in Scotland and Wales it's the same whatever your postcode. 2 rounds for women under 40, and in Northern Ireland it's 1. Today, Dawn, along with thousands of other couples around the country, will be hoping England's postcode lottery is 1 step closer to ending. Francesca Carpenter, ITV News.
More than 1,500 UK schools are failing. According to new government figures, the Department for Education's released its annual league tables, and it shows that almost 250,000 pupils are being taught at schools performing below the national average. And in sport, Novak Djokovic has been knocked out of the Australian Open in the 2nd round. The world number 2 was defeated by Uzbekistan's Denis Istomin, who's ranked 117th. That result leaves Sir Andy Murray a clear favourite to win the tournament. Finally, a British yachtsman who has spent the last 74 days at sea, unable to catch more than 45 minutes sleep at a time, is edging closer to the end of his solo sail round the world. Alex Thompson is battling to become the first Briton to finish the race in first place. He is sitting second behind his French rival, as Suzanne Verdi reports.
So near and yet so far. Yachtsman Alex Thompson is fighting fatigue and technical failures to try to win one of the toughest competitions in ocean racing, the solo round-the-world Vendée Globe race.
Currently trying to rewire anemometers, so I don't really care about the finish. I just want to sleep. I haven't slept properly for 2 days, so at the moment that is the only thing on my radar.
74 long, gruelling days into the race with just 45 minutes sleep a night, Alex is in second place, around 100 nautical miles behind his rival, Frenchman Armel Lecliache. Although he's in a good position, it hasn't been plain sailing for Alex. A hydrofoil on his £3 million boat was ripped off early on, and more recently, technical problems mean his autopilot isn't working properly, hampering his efforts to take the lead.
We're all going to be absolutely ecstatic to see him coming in, to just be there to experience it with him, and we're just so proud of him, and yeah, it's just going to be an absolutely amazing day.
The race is expected to end in western France in the next few hours. Exactly when depends on the weather. Although the Frenchman looks on target to win, stranger things have happened at sea. After all, the race mantra is to finish first. First, you have to finish. Suzanne Verdi, ITV News.
And we have finished. Mary Nightingale will be in Washington with the ITV Evening News at 6:30. But for now, from all of us, bye-bye.